difference.
Talking
I think
about
what
the
these
Fed.
people are doing, Glenn, is they're taking the leverage of this power, this financial power, and they're converting that into political power. Their vision now is much bigger than just making money. Their vision is really in terms of controlling nations and in controlling society and in controlling the world. We've all heard that famous phrase, the New World Order. They use this phrase over and over again. It's their phrase, and they're really serious about it. They're taking the money and they're buying up political leaders, they're buying up media outlets, they're buying up large organizations, influencing labor unions, and so forth.
Show me how give me an example of where they're buying up media organizations or labor unions.
Well, all right, here's how it works. You know, the human being is a herd animal. We follow in groups. We follow leaders. And so all that anybody needs to do to control a society is to control the leadership of that society through what these people call the power centers. Those are the large organizations, you know, the things that people belong to when they have leaders and they follow. They respect their leaders. We're talking about political parties, labor unions, church organizations, obvious things. So they know that if they can dominate just the heads of these organizations, the half of 1% of the population that is in control of the power centers, they've got the masses in line. And so when you look at the tops of these organizations, they're all in line with the Federal Reserve, with the New World Order, and that sort of thing.
Okay, it is
not the membership, but the top.
It's the Saul Alinsky principle of organize the organized. Let me come back. Audience questions, and then I want to ask you, Mark, about Ronald Reagan. The story is that Ronald Reagan was kind of taken on the Fed and rattling the cages, and the Fed taught him a lesson, and he kind of went back into line. We'll get into that in a second.
So I recently talked to some of my friends about what they're going to talk about right now about the Fed and inflation and money printing.
We want to go to the audience here who has sat patiently, and I want to start with Nicole and your question about the Fed.
In the Weimar Republic, they flooded the economy with currency to jumpstart it. How much money would have to be flooded into our economy, either in dollars or percent of the GDP, to have that same situation as they had in the Weimar Republic?
The inflation rates you saw in Germany in the 20s were off the charts. I mean, literally people were getting paid twice a day so that you could go to the grocery store before prices doubled. And literally you'd be there at a cup of coffee, and by the time you got your next cup of coffee, it was more expensive than the last cup of coffee. So we were talking, interest rates, inflation, double digits over the course of a day.
Well, you have Zimbabwe.
Yeah, Zimbabwe.
You have Hungary.
So it's certainly very feasible, but we are a long ways away from that. I think worst case scenario for the United States is we're going to start to see inflation in the high single digits. Now, I think that that's important because even at a 2% rate of inflation, which the Federal Reserve tells us is price stability, at a 2% rate of inflation over 30 years, half of the value of any asset is wiped out. So, this slowly erodes over time. Now, obviously, when you get to something like 10 or 20% inflation, you're just running to stay ahead and protect the wealth you have.
Edward, do you have any point of context here on the printing of money? They're now talking seriously about printing money as a way out of this unsustainable debt.
Well, that's always been their theory. They're just talking about it more openly now. And that's, as I said a moment ago, that's their only trick. And so we can anticipate that's the trick they're going to play. But in terms of inflation, I am not quite as optimistic about the inflation rate or as impressed by this 2% or 3% figure. I believe that the government is not telling us the truth about the true inflation rate. I think they're fixing the formula. I don't think I'm alone in this, obviously. But what is the true rate? I believe, from what I can see, that it's pushing up to about 20% right now. Maybe not be that high, but that certainly is the rate at which gold is expanding, and historically that's always been a very accurate measure over a long period of time of true inflation.
So this young kid's going to ask a question, and we'll see what happens, but whoever has a 401k is going to lose everything. That's what I think, at least.
How old are you, Morgan?
I'm 23.
You're 23. You just asked the question in the break. I don't have anything.
Right.
What do I do, right?
What do you do when it all comes crashing down if you don't have anything because you're just starting out?
I think you do need to be concerned. I mean, fortunately, for good or bad, you're not in as bad shape as people who are savers. I mean, the people who are really getting hit the worst by this are people who've been saving all their lives, who are near retirement. You hopefully have enough time to plan against this. You need to put yourself, I mean, the most immediate thing you can do is build your own human capital, because labor will always be worth something and brains will always be worth something. And hopefully they can't inflate that away. But any physical wealth is going to be something that you've got to find a way to protect yourself and hedge it. And you can look at a variety of commodities, whether it's silver or gold, or whether it's even the food stuff, or even it's land, because all of those things tend to hold their value in inflation.